Star Trek's third and final season brought us a new lineup of unforgettable guest stars, from alien leaders to legendary figures from history. But what happened to the actors behind them after their time on the Enterprise? Let's set a course for memory lane and warp into Season 3, Episode 1. In the Season 3 opener, Spock's Brain, the mysterious Kara leads the Imorgs in stealing Spock's mind. She was played by Marge Doucet, born February 20th, 1936, in Hays, Kansas. Doucet became a familiar face in television, later building a long career in daytime dramas like Guiding Light and All My Children. She also turned up on shows such as Barnaby Jones and Hawaii Five-0. Marge Doucet passed away in 2020 at the age of 83. Also in Spock's Brain, James Darris is simply credited as Creature in this episode. He was the brutish surface dweller who led the Morgs in an attack against Kirk's landing party. He was born November 13, 1933, in Chicago. Darris made the rounds on classic television, showing up in Mission Impossible, Mannix, and Hawaii Five-0. After Star Trek, his screen appearances became less frequent, and he eventually retired from acting. As of 2025, James Darris is 91. Sheila Layton appeared as Luma, one of the Imorgs living underground. She was born October 22, 1940, in Los Angeles. Layton worked regularly in the late 1960s and 1970s, with guest roles on The Green Hornet, Get Smart, and Marcus Welby, MD. She later appeared in the action film Girls Are for Loving in 1973. In 2025, Sheila Layton is 84. In the Enterprise incident, the Enterprise undertakes a daring scheme to steal the Romulan cloaking device. Battling both intellect and desire, the Romulan commander lures Spock into a high-stakes psychological game and earns her place in Star Trek legend. She was portrayed by Joanne Linville, born January 15, 1928, in Bakersfield, California. Linville became a familiar face on television with appearances in Columbo, Hawaii Five-0, Charlie's Angels, and Dynasty. On the big screen, she was seen in Gable and Lombard and A Star is Born. Later in life, she taught at the Stella Adler Academy's Acting Conservatory in Los Angeles. She passed away in 2021 at the age of 93. Jack Donner appears as Subcommander Tal, the Romulan first officer who confronts Kirk and demands the Enterprise's surrender. He was born in Los Angeles on October 29, 1928, and enjoyed a career spanning 6 decades across theater, television, and film. Donner holds the distinction of having appeared in 11 episodes of Mission Impossible, more than any other guest star. He later returned to Star Trek as a Vulcan priest on Enterprise, and co-founded the Oxford Theatre in LA, where he helped mentor emerging actors. Jack Donner passed away in 2019 at the age of 90. In The Paradise Syndrome, Kirk suffers amnesia and is mistaken for a god by a Native American-like tribe. Miramani, the gentle tribal priestess who loves him deeply, was portrayed by Sabrina Sharf, born October 17, 1943, in Delphos, Ohio. Sharf later left acting and became an environmental activist, lawyer, and real estate developer, and even ran for California State Senate in the 1970s. As of 2025, she is 81. Salish, the proud medicine chief who resents Kirk's sudden rise, was played by Rudy Solari, born December 21, 1934, in Modesto, California. Solari worked steadily in television, with roles on The Outer Limits, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and Mission Impossible, before appearing in Star Trek. Afterward, he continued acting into the 1970s, with guest spots on shows like Quincy, The FBI, and The Bionic Woman. In his later years, he turned toward theater in Los Angeles, teaching and directing stage productions. Rudy Solari passed away in 1991 at the age of 56. The dignified Elder Goro, head of the village council, was brought to life by Richard Hale. Born November 16, 1892, in Rogersville, Tennessee, Hale first enjoyed success as a Shakespearean actor and opera singer, before Hollywood discovered his booming voice and imposing presence. Beyond Star Trek, he appeared in Julius Caesar, Friendly Persuasion, To Kill a Mockingbird, and countless westerns on television. He continued acting into the early 1970s before retiring. Hale passed away in 1981 at age 88. In the episode And the Children Shall Lead, the orphaned youngsters on the Enterprise fall under the sway of a mysterious being they call the Friendly Angel. But this seemingly gentle figure is in fact Gorgon, a malevolent entity determined to control the ship. He was played by Melvin Belli, born July 29, 1907, in Sonora, California. Famous in real life as the flamboyant trial lawyer nicknamed the King of Torts, Belli occasionally stepped in front of the camera, appearing as himself in Wild in the Streets, and later turning up on shows like Hunter and Murder, She Wrote. His portrayal of Gorgon remains his most unusual screen role. Melvin Belli passed away in 1996 at the age of 88. His son, Caesar Belli, played the alien-influenced child Steve O'Connell in the same episode. Caesar was born March 28, 1957, in San Francisco. His appearance came through his father's connection to the show, and it turned out to be his only acting credit. He later chose law over acting, and today works as a practicing attorney. In 2025, he is 68 years old. Tommy Starnes, the oldest of the children, was played by Craig Huxley, credited at the time as Craig Hundley. Born November 22, 1954, in Sherman Oaks, California, Huxley transitioned from child actor into an accomplished musician and composer. He patented his version of the aluminum blaster beam, a unique instrument used in the soundtrack for Star Trek: The Motion Picture. At 70, he continues to be active in music and creative projects. Pamela Ferdin appeared as Mary. She was born February 4, 1959 in Los Angeles. Ferdin became one of the busiest child actresses of the era, voicing Lucy in A Boy Named Charlie Brown and Fern in Charlotte's Web, while also co-starring on The Odd Couple. She later became a registered nurse and an outspoken animal rights activist. Today, she is 66. The character Ray was played by Brian Tochi, born May 2, 1959 in Los Angeles. Just 9 years old when he appeared on Star Trek, Tochi went on to become one of the most visible Asian American child and teen actors of the 1970s, with roles in Anna and the King, Kung Fu, and the Saturday morning series Space Academy. In the 1980s, he shifted into adult roles, appearing in Revenge of the Nerds and voicing Leonardo in the first 3 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles films. He later returned to Trek as Ensign Lin in the Next Generation episode Night Terrors. At 66, he remains active in entertainment. Don Linden was portrayed by Mark Robert Brown, born December 4, 1958 in Los Angeles. Before Star Trek, he'd already worked widely as a child actor on shows like I Spy and Please Don't Eat the Daisies. After his appearance in And the Children Shall Lead, he continued with guest spots on Lancer and The Bill Cosby Show, and later built a career as a teacher, singer, producer, and mentor. Now 66, he remains active in creative and educational work. In the episode, Is There in Truth No Beauty?, the Enterprise must transport Kolos, a Medusan ambassador whose appearance is so alien it can drive humans insane. The psychologist who volunteers to help is Dr. Miranda Jones. She was portrayed by Diana Muldaur, born August 19, 1938, in Brooklyn, New York. Muldaur later became a familiar face on television, playing attorney Rosalind Shays on LA Law and Dr. Pulaski on The Next Generation. At 87, she remains a celebrated figure in television history. The ship's coordinator for the alien delegation, Larry Marvick, was played by David Frankham, born February 16, 1926, in Kent, England. Frankham enjoyed a prolific television career from the 1950s through the 1980s, appearing on series like The Outer Limits, Thriller, and The Waltons. He is 99 years old in 2025. In Spectre of the Gun, the Melkotians condemn Kirk and his landing party to play out the infamous gunfight at the OK Corral, but cast them in the roles of the Clanton Gang. Opposing them are the legendary lawmen of Tombstone. Wyatt Earp is portrayed by Ron Sobel, born March 28, 1928 in Chicago, Illinois. A familiar face in westerns, Sobel also appeared in films like True Grit and Papillon. He passed away in 2002 at the age of 74. Sylvia, the barmaid whose attraction to Chekhov changes the course of the showdown, is played by Bonnie Beecher, born April 25, 1941 in Minneapolis. Before Star Trek, she appeared on The Twilight Zone and Gunsmoke. After her Trek role, she made one last TV appearance in The Outsider, later in 1968, then retired from acting. She went on to a life of social activism, working with her husband Wavy Gravy to run a performing arts camp. At 84, she remains connected to that community. Virgil Earp is played by Charles Maxwell, born December 28, 1913, in Long Island, New York. A prolific character actor, Maxwell made dozens of appearances on westerns like Bonanza, Rawhide, and Bat Masterson, and could also be heard as the voice of the radio announcer on Gilligan's Island. He passed away in 1993 at the age of 79. Morgan Earp is portrayed by Rex Holman, born December 11, 1935, in Denver, Colorado. Holman returned to the franchise 2 decades later, playing Jean in Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. He worked steadily in television and film through the 1980s. Rex Holman passed away in 2025 at the age of 89. The role of Doc Holliday is played by Sam Gilman, born February 5, 1915 in Brooklyn, New York. Gilman was a veteran character actor with dozens of credits in westerns and crime dramas, including appearances on Gunsmoke, The Big Valley, and Man X. Sam Gilman passed away in 1985 at the age of 70. The saloon bartender, Ed, is portrayed by Charles Seel, born April 29, 1897, in Los Angeles. A classic Hollywood character actor, he was best remembered as Mr. Crinky on Dennis the Menace, and turned up regularly on shows like Gunsmoke and Bonanza. He passed away in 1980 at the age of 82. Johnny Behan, the local lawman in Tombstone, is played by Bill Zuckert, born December 18, 1915 in the Bronx, New York. A veteran of radio, Broadway, television, and film, he later played Mr. Finkel in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. Bill Zuckert passed away in 1997 at the age of 81. In Day of the Dove, the Enterprise faces off against the Klingons under the command of Kang, one of the most memorable Klingon captains of the original series. Kang was played by Michael Ansara, born April 15, 1922 in Syria and raised in Massachusetts. Ansara became known for commanding roles, from Cochise in Broken Arrow to appearances on I Dream of Jeannie and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. He returned to Star Trek as Kang in Deep Space Nine and Voyager, making him one of the rare original series guest stars to reprise his role decades later, before passing away in 2013 at the age of 91. Mara is Kang's devoted wife and the Klingon science officer who helps bridge the conflict with the Enterprise crew. She was played by Susan Howard, born January 28, 1944, in Marshall, Texas. After her guest turn on Star Trek, Howard found lasting fame in the 1970s and 80s, starring as Maggie in Petrocelli and as Donna Krebs in Dallas, where she became a household name. Later in life, she turned her attention to writing and political activism. She is 81 in 2025. In For the World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky, Dr. McCoy falls in love with Matira, the high priestess of the asteroid ship Yonada. She was portrayed by Catherine Woodville, born March 12, 1938 in Ewell, Surrey, England. Woodville was a familiar face on 1960s television, with appearances on The Avengers, Mission Impossible, and It Takes a Thief. After Star Trek, she enjoyed a run on the daytime drama Days of Our Lives, before retiring from acting in the 1980s. Catherine Woodville passed away in 2013 at the age of 75. Another key figure in the story is the Old Man, who dares to question the Oracle's control over the people of Yonada. Before he dies, he utters the haunting words that give the episode its title, For the World is Hollow, and I Have Touched the Sky. He was played by John Lormer, born May 7, 1906, in Canton, Ohio. Lormer was one of the few actors to appear in 3 different Star Trek episodes, beginning with the original pilot, The Cage, then Return of the Archons, and finally here. A dependable character actor, he also turned up on Perry Mason, The Twilight Zone, Bonanza, and The Waltons. John Lormer passed away in 1986 at the age of 79. In Plato's Stepchildren, the Enterprise crew encounters a society of telekinetic Platonians who cruelly torment them. The only compassionate member of their group is Alexander, played by Michael Dunn. Born October 20th, 1934 in Shattuck, Oklahoma, Dunn was an accomplished actor and singer, standing just 3 feet 10 inches tall due to spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia. He brought both humor and pathos to the role of Alexander, who longs for dignity among his peers. Beyond Star Trek, Dunn was best known as Dr. Miguelito Loveless, the recurring villain on The Wild Wild West. His career also spanned stage and film, including an Academy Award-nominated role in Ship of Fools. Michael Dunn passed away in 1973 at the age of 38. Parman, the leader of the Platonians who sadistically torments the Enterprise crew, was portrayed by Liam Sullivan. He was born May 18, 1923 in San Francisco, California. Sullivan carved out a long career in television, often cast as smooth villains or men of authority. He had notable appearances on Perry Mason, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and The Twilight Zone. In later years, he took on roles in series like Columbo and Dynasty. Away from television, he also recorded religious and spoken word albums. He passed away in 1998 at the age of 74. Philana, the manipulative queen of the Platonians, was played by Barbara Babcock. She was born February 27, 1937 in Fort Riley, Kansas. Trek fans first saw her in Season 1's A Taste of Armageddon, where she played Maya 3. She later provided voice work in episodes such as The Squire of Gothos, Assignment Earth, and The Tholian Web, before returning on screen as Philana in Plato's Stepchildren. Beyond Star Trek, she built a celebrated television career, winning an Emmy in 1981 for Hill Street Blues and starring as Dorothy Jennings in Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. Today, she is 88. In Wink of an Eye, the Enterprise is infiltrated by the Skolosians, a race of hyper-accelerated beings. Their alluring queen, Dila, was played by Kathy Brown. She was born September 19, 1930 in San Luis Obispo, California. Brown became a familiar face on 1960s television, with guest roles on Perry Mason, Bonanza, The Alfred Hitchcock Hour, 77 Sunset Strip, and Have Gun, Will Travel. After Star Trek, she continued acting into the 1970s before retiring. She was married to actor Darren McGavin until her passing in 2003 at the age of 72. Rael, the Skolosian scientist and Dila's second-in-command, was played by Jason Evers. He was born January 2, 1922, in New York City. Evers enjoyed a long television career, starring in the early 60s drama Channing and appearing in films like The Brain That Wouldn't Die. He was also a frequent guest star on Gunsmoke, Perry Mason, Mission Impossible, and Charlie's Angels, continuing to work steadily into the 1990s. Jason Evers passed away in 2005 at the age of 83. In The Empath, the Enterprise crew encounters Jem, a mute alien who can absorb the pain of others through touch. The role was played by Catherine Hayes, born July 26, 1933 in Princeton, Illinois. Hayes had a career that stretched from primetime dramas like The Road West and Night Gallery to a nearly 40-year run as Kim Hughes on the daytime soap As the World Turns. Her sensitive performance as Jem remains one of the most poignant guest appearances in Star Trek. Catherine Hayes passed away in 2022 at the age of 87. Lal, one of the mysterious Vians who capture Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, was played by Alan Bergman. He was born October 17, 1927, in Brooklyn, New York. Bergman worked steadily on television in the 1960s and 70s, with guest roles on the FBI, Mission Impossible, Hogan's Heroes, and The Rockford Files. He also had a small role in the Charles Bronson film The Stone Killer. Alan Bergman passed away in 2017 at the age of 89. Than, one of the Vians who joins Lal in testing the limits of Jem's empathy by tormenting Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, was played by Willard Sage. He was born August 13, 1922, in London, Ontario, Canada. Sage worked steadily in television throughout the 1960s and early 70s, with guest roles on Perry Mason, Bonanza, Gunsmoke, and The Virginian. He also played Dr. Blake in Colossus, The Forbin Project. He passed away in 1974 at the age of 51. In Elan of Troyes, the Enterprise must transport Elan, the proud and temperamental Dolmen of Elas, to an arranged marriage meant to secure peace. She was played by France Nguyen, born July 31, 1939, in Marseille, France. Nguyen first rose to fame as Liat in the film South Pacific, before building a career in both movies and television, with appearances on I Spy, Columbo, Kung Fu, and a regular role as Dr. Paulette Kiem on Saint Elsewhere in the 1980s. In 2025, she is 86 years old. Ambassador Petri of Troyes, who tries in vain to tame Elan's fiery temper and prepare her for her royal marriage, was played by Jay Robinson. He was born April 14, 1930, in New York City. Robinson shot to fame in the 1950s, playing the decadent Emperor Caligula in The Robe and Demetrius and the Gladiators. His career continued with roles in films like Shampoo and Big Top Pee-wee. On television, he guest starred on series such as Bewitched, Murder, She Wrote, and had a recurring role as Dr. Shrinker in The Croft Super Show. Jay Robinson passed away in 2013 at the age of 83.
Crichton, Elan's aide who secretly plots sabotage aboard the Enterprise, was played by Tony Young. He was born June 28, 1937 in New York City. Early in his career, he headlined the short-lived Western series Gunslinger, and on the big screen he appeared in the biker film Chrome and Hot Leather. Tony Young passed away in 2002 at the age of 64.
In Whom Gods Destroy, the Enterprise crew confronts Garth of Izar, a once-celebrated starship captain who has descended into madness. The role was played by Steve Einat, born August 7, 1934 in Czechoslovakia and raised in Canada. Einat carved out a career as a charismatic character actor, appearing on Mission Impossible, Mannix, The Outer Limits, and Gunsmoke. He also appeared in films such as Madigan and In Like Flint. Off-screen, he branched into writing and directing. Tragically, Steve Einat died of a heart attack in 1972 while attending the Cannes Film Festival at just 37 years old. The alluring Orion inmate Marta is played by Yvonne Craig. She was born May 16, 1937 in Taylorville, Illinois. Craig had already risen to fame in the 1960s, appearing in films opposite Elvis Presley, like It Happened at the World's Fair and Kissin' Cousins. She became a pop culture icon as Batgirl on the Batman television series. After Star Trek, she continued acting, with roles on Love American Style, The $6 Million Man, and Fantasy Island. She passed away in 2015 at the age of 78. Governor Corey, the compassionate yet powerless administrator of the asylum on Elba II, was played by Ki Luke. He was born June 18, 1904, in Guangzhou, China. Luke was a pioneering Asian American actor, first gaining fame in the 1930s as Lee Chan in the Charlie Chan films, and later as Kato in the Green Hornet serials. In the 1970s, he became beloved for his recurring role as the blind Master Po on the series Kung Fu. His long career also included film appearances in Gremlins and Gremlins 2. Ki Luke passed away in 1991 at the age of 86. In Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, Frank Gorshin portrays Beale, the authoritarian officer locked in endless pursuit of his enemy Lokai. Gorshin, born April 5, 1933 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, was already world famous as the Riddler on the 1960s Batman series, a role that earned him an Emmy nomination. His film career included Where the Boys Are, That Darn Cat, and later 12 Monkeys. Beyond acting, he was celebrated as one of Hollywood's most gifted impressionists. Frank Gorshin passed away in 2005 at the age of 72. Lokai, the fugitive from Charon whose presence aboard the Enterprise reignites centuries of racial hatred, was portrayed by Lou Antonio. He was born January 23, 1934 in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Antonio was already known for his role in Cool Hand Luke and appearances on shows like Naked City and The Fugitive. In later years, he became a prolific television director, working on acclaimed series such as Picket Fences, Dawson's Creek, and Boston Legal. Today, he is 91. In The Mark of Gideon, Captain Kirk encounters O'Donnell, a woman used to ensnare him in a desperate plan to solve her planet's overpopulation crisis. She was played by Sharon Acker, born April 2, 1935, in Toronto, Canada. Acker appeared in films like Point Blank alongside Lee Marvin, and on television in The Wild Wild West. After Star Trek, she took on the role of Della Street in The New Perry Mason, and later had a long run on the series Texas in the 1980s. In 2023, Acker passed away at the age of 87. O'Donnell's father, Hodine, the Gideon leader determined to use Kirk in his planet's grim population control plan, was played by David Hurst. He was born May 8, 1926, in Berlin, Germany. Hurst enjoyed a wide-ranging career in both film and television, with roles in The Appaloosa opposite Marlon Brando, Hello Dolly as Rudolph the Head Waiter, and Kelly's Heroes. On television, he appeared in series such as Mission Impossible, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and The Doctors. He passed away in 2019 at the age of 93. In That Which Survives, the Enterprise away team is stalked by Losira, a beautiful but deadly projection created by a long-dead alien computer. The role was played by Lee Merriweather, born May 27, 1935, in Los Angeles, California. A former Miss America, Merriweather stepped into pop culture history as Catwoman in the 1966 Batman movie, then co-starred in The Time Tunnel and later in Barnaby Jones as Betty Jones for much of the 1970s. She continued working in television for decades, including guest roles on Murder, She Wrote and All My Children. In 2025, Merriweather is 90 years old. Early in the episode, the landing party's geologist, Lieutenant D. Amato, is singled out by Losira's lethal touch. He was played by Arthur Batanides, born April 9, 1923, in Tacoma, Washington. Batanides was a familiar face on television, with appearances on shows like Rod Brown of the Rocket Rangers, The Detectives, and The Dick Van Dyke Show. Decades later, a new generation of fans came to know him as Mr. Kirkland in the Police Academy films. Arthur Batanides passed away in 2000 at the age of 76. Back aboard the Enterprise, Ensign John Watkins becomes another victim of Losira's deadly projection. He was played by Kenneth Washington, born October 19, 1936, in Ethel, Mississippi. Washington later became known as Sergeant Richard Baker on Hogan's Heroes. He passed away on July 18, 2025, at the age of 88. Returning in That Which Survives is Dr. Mbenga, played by Booker Bradshaw. He was born May 21, 1940, in Richmond, Virginia. Bradshaw had first appeared as Mbenga in the Season 2 episode A Private Little War. Beyond Star Trek, he was seen on television in The Mod Squad and appeared in the cult blaxploitation classic Coffee alongside Pam Grier. Bradshaw also built a career behind the scenes as a writer and producer for Motown. He passed away in 2003 at the age of 62. In The Lights of Zetar, the Enterprise welcomes Lieutenant Mira Romaine, a specialist bound for Memory Alpha and the object of Scotty's affection. She was played by Jan Schutan, born November 5, 1932, in Los Angeles. Schutan was a familiar presence on television in the 1960s and 70s, with credits that included The Outer Limits, The Andy Griffith Show, Love American Style, and Room 222. She also appeared in films such as Dracula's Dog. Jan Schutan passed away in 2021 at the age of 88. In Requiem for Methuselah, the Enterprise encounters Flint, an immortal who has lived for thousands of years under countless identities, from Da Vinci to Brahms. He was portrayed by James Daly, born October 23, 1918, in Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. Daly enjoyed a long career on stage and television, best known as Dr. Paul Lochner on the medical drama Medical Center. He also made appearances on The Twilight Zone, Mission Impossible, and Ironside. Off-screen, he was the father of actors Tyne and Tim Daly. James Daly passed away in 1978 at the age of 59.
Flint's companion Reyna, ultimately revealed to be an android who begins to feel human emotions, was played by Louise Sorel. She was born August 6, 1940, in Los Angeles. Sorel built a long career on television, appearing in shows like The Fugitive, The Big Valley, Bonanza, and Hawaii Five-0. She became best known to soap opera fans as Augusta Lockridge on Santa Barbara and as Vivian Alamain on Days of Our Lives, roles she continued into the 21st century. In 2025, she is 85 years old.
Leading a group of idealistic but misguided space hippies in The Way to Eden is Dr. Severin, played by Skip Homeyer. He was born October 5, 1930 in Chicago, Illinois. Homeyer began as a child actor, gaining early attention in the film Tomorrow the World, before moving into adult roles in movies like The Gunfighter, Fixed Bayonets, and Cry Vengeance. On television, he made frequent guest appearances on Perry Mason, The Rifleman, Bonanza, Mission Impossible, and Mannix. He retired from acting in the early 1980s. Skip Homeyer passed away in 2017 at the age of 86.
Among the space hippies is Adam, the flamboyant guitarist and singer whose songs rally the group. He was played by Charles Napier, born April 12, 1936, in Mount Union, Kentucky. Napier built a prolific career in film and television, appearing in Rambo: First Blood Part 2, The Silence of the Lambs, and Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery. On the small screen, he turned up regularly on shows such as The Rockford Files, The A-Team, and Murder, She Wrote. He passed away in 2011 at the age of 75.
Another of Dr. Severin's devoted followers, Mavig, was played by Deborah Downey. She was born November 30th, 1949, in Indiana. Credited early in her career as Deborah Downey, she was later known as Deborah Lyons. Her appearance in The Way to Eden was her most notable screen role, as she retired from acting shortly afterward. She went on to pursue work as a singer and visual artist, remaining a familiar face to fans through the Star Trek convention circuit. Today, she is 76. Irina, the former Starfleet cadet and Chekhov's past love interest, was portrayed by Mary Linda Rapelier. She was born November 16, 1944, in Kansas City, Missouri. After her Star Trek appearance, Rapelier transitioned mainly into daytime television, with recurring roles on One Life to Live and later on As the World Turns. She passed away in 2021 at the age of 76. Among Dr. Severin's followers is Tongo Rad, played by Victor Brandt. Born September 19, 1942 in Los Angeles, Brandt appeared twice on Star Trek: The Original Series. First as Engineer Watson in Elan of Troyes, and then as Tongo Rad in The Way to Eden. In later years, he built a prolific career as a voice actor in animation and video games, including Batman: The Animated Series and Avatar: The Last Airbender. Today, he is 82. In The Cloudminders, the Enterprise visits the floating city of Stratos, ruled by the authoritarian High Advisor Placis. The role was played by Jeff Corey, born August 10, 1914, in Brooklyn, New York. Corey's career took a dramatic turn in the 1950s when he was blacklisted after refusing to cooperate with the House Un-American Activities Committee, which demanded that he name colleagues with alleged communist ties. After more than a decade away from film, he returned to prominence with roles in Seconds, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and Little Big Man. He also guest starred on shows like Perry Mason and The Outer Limits. Jeff Corey passed away in 2002 at the age of 88. Also in The Cloudminders is Droxine, the daughter of High Advisor Placis. She was portrayed by Diana Ewing, born January 4, 1946, in Honolulu, Hawaii. Ewing went on to appear in films like Play It As It Lays, and in television series such as Love American Style and The Mod Squad. She left acting in the mid-1970s. In 2025, she is 79. On the ground, the Troglodyte resistance finds its voice in Vanna, portrayed by Charlene Polite. She was born June 30, 1943, in Youngstown, Ohio.
Polite's acting career was brief, with appearances on shows like Cannon and The Mod Squad. She passed away in 1999 at the age of 55. Among the Troglyte rebels is Anka, portrayed by Fred Williamson. He was born March 5, 1938, in Gary, Indiana. Before turning to acting, Williamson was a professional football player in both the NFL and AFL. Soon after Star Trek, he made the jump to film with a role in MASH, and quickly became a major figure in the blaxploitation era, with hits like Black Caesar, Hell Up in Harlem, and 3 the Hard Way. He later appeared in From Dusk Till Dawn and Original Gangstas. Fred Williamson is 87 years old in 2025. In The Savage Curtain, the Excalbians recreate historic figures to test good versus evil, and Abraham Lincoln himself appears aboard the Enterprise. He was played by Lee Bergier, born April 10, 1918, in Brooklyn, New York. Bergier had a steady career in television, with credits on Perry Mason, Mission Impossible, and Mannix. He later became well known to 1980s audiences for his recurring role as Joseph Anders, the Carringtons' major domo on Dynasty. Lee Bergier passed away in 2007 at the age of 88. Among the recreated figures in The Savage Curtain is Surak, the revered father of Vulcan logic. He was portrayed by Barry Atwater, born May 16, 1918, in Denver, Colorado. Atwater had an active television career, with roles on Perry Mason, Mission Impossible, and The Twilight Zone, but he is especially remembered for playing the vampire Janos Skorzeny in the TV movie The Night Stalker. Barry Atwater passed away in 1978 at the age of 60. Colonel Green, the infamous war criminal conjured by the Excalbians, was played by Philip Pine. He was born July 16, 1920, in Hanford, California. Pine's television career stretched across decades, with appearances on The Twilight Zone, The Untouchables, The Outer Limits, and Mission Impossible. After his Star Trek role, he continued working steadily, including guest spots on Police Story in the 1970s. Philip Pine passed away in 2006 at the age of 86. Kahless the Unforgettable, the legendary Klingon hero conjured by the Excalbians, was portrayed by Bob Herron. He was born September 23, 1924, in Lomita, California. Herron was primarily a stuntman, amassing more than 500 film and television credits. Over his long career, he doubled for major stars, including Ernest Borgnine, Tom Bosley, Jackie Gleason, Cliff Robertson, Andy Griffith, and Robert Conrad. Bob Herron passed away in 2021 at the age of 97. The Excalbians also summoned Genghis Khan, brought to life by Nathan Jung. He was born November 29, 1946, in Bakersfield, California. His imposing size made him unnatural for villainous roles, and he became a familiar face on television, with appearances in Kung Fu, MASH, Starsky and Hutch, and The A-Team. On the big screen, he appeared in cult favorites like Big Trouble in Little China and Surf Ninjas. Nathan Jung passed away in 2021 at the age of 74. Rounding out the Excalbian tableau is Zora, portrayed by Carol Daniels, credited on screen as Carol Daniels Dement. Born October 7, 1935 in Los Angeles, she built a long career as a stuntwoman and stunt actress, with work on Star Trek dating back to the original pilot, The Cage. Today, she is 89. In All Our Yesterdays, the enigmatic librarian Mr. Ataz is brought to life by Ian Wolfe. Born November 4, 1896 in Canton, Illinois, Wolfe enjoyed one of the longest careers of any Star Trek guest star, with more than 270 film and television credits. His film work included Rebel Without a Cause, Witness for the Prosecution, and 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. While on television, he turned up in shows like The Twilight Zone and WKRP in Cincinnati. Wolfe appeared twice on Star Trek the Original Series, also portraying Septimus in Bread and Circuses. Wolfe passed away in 1992 at the age of 95. Spock and McCoy, cast into a frozen wasteland, encounter Zarabeth, a woman condemned to live out her life in exile. She was portrayed by Mariette Hartley, born June 21st, 1940 in Weston, Connecticut. Hartley's career spanned film, television, and commercials, with movie roles in The Return of Count Yorga and Marooned, television appearances on Peyton Place, Bonanza, and One Life to Live, and Emmy-winning work on The Incredible Hulk. She also became famous for her Polaroid ads with James Garner in the 1970s and 1980s. She is 85 in 2025. The stern prosecutor was played by Kermit Murdoch. He was born March 20th, 1908 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Murdoch worked steadily in film and television for decades, appearing in The Edge of Night and The Defenders, and later as Dr. Robertson in the sci-fi classic The Andromeda Strain. He passed away in 1981 at the age of 72. Also appearing in this episode is the Constable, portrayed by Johnny Hamer. He was born January 19th, 1920 in St. Louis, Missouri. Hamer went on to become familiar to audiences as Sergeant Zelmo Zale on MASH, and he also did voice work in the Transformers during the 1980s. His career included guest spots on comedies like Get Smart and The Doris Day Show. Johnny Hamer passed away in 1989 at the age of 69. The episode also featured a brief appearance by Anna Karen Morrow as the woman who accuses Kirk of being a witch. She was born September 20th, 1914 in New Jersey. Morrow worked regularly in television through the 1950s and 60s, with roles on Wagon Train, Peyton Place, and Marcus Welby, MD. Her film work included The Price of Fear and The Wrong Man. She passed away in 2009 at the age of 94. In Turnabout Intruder, the final episode of the original series, Dr. Janice Lester seizes Captain Kirk's body in a desperate bid for power. She was portrayed by Sandra Smith, born June 27, 1938 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Smith worked steadily in television throughout the 1960s and 70s, with appearances on Our Private World and Guiding Light. After Trek, she appeared in The Interns. In 2025, she is 87 years old. Also, in Turnabout Intruder is Dr. Arthur Coleman, Janice Lester's accomplice in the plot against Captain Kirk. He was played by Harry Landers, born September 3rd, 1921, in New York City. Landers had a steady career in both film and television, with credits on Ben Casey and later in Quincy M.E. He also appeared in films such as The Gallant Hours and had a role in The Ten Commandments. Landers passed away in 2017 at the age of 96. That wraps up Season 3 of Star Trek's Unforgettable Guest Stars. If you enjoyed this look back, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And join us next time as we boldly go through more Hollywood history. Thanks for watching.